Hello, this is Jeff again at Ferrari FXS. We have a 360 Spider in today, and we're starting to get ready for a timing belt change and a few other things. We're going to install some headers on this and change some fluids and do, like I said, a few things. So right now we're just taking the under tray off, getting it ready, and then we're probably going to proceed and take the seats out, get everything opened up before we take the panels off to get the belts changed. So that's where we're starting. Yeah. All right. So we've got the paint off, and like I said, we're just kind of doing things sporadically here. We're going to take this grate off here on the flywheel, so later on we can stick the tool in to lock the crank, so we can break the crank bolt loose. So that's what we're doing right now. What size was that, Mark?
This is a, looks like.
All right, so we've removed that grate over the crank, not crank, but flywheel. So later on, when we get further on, we're gonna stick our tool up here and lock the flywheel in place. But like I said, we're not at that point right now. So we're gonna put the car down, and then we're gonna take the seats out and take the back wall out. So that's what we're gonna do. Go ahead.
These were a little bit tighter. We used an impact driver on 2 of them. You don't want to break those things. It'd be a world of hurt to try to get those out of there if you did. So try not to strip anything. We did it well with the impact driver.
All right. All right. By the way, we also disconnected the battery just now. Open that up again, Mark. Remember, there's got the rotary switch over here, so we disconnected it before we proceeded on, because we are not going to need more power at this point. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and try to take the seats out now and proceed on. By the way, we're putting power back on. We've actually, it's a good idea to roll the windows down, because once you kill power, when you open the door, the windows won't actuate down. So before you do that, like I said, we're going to have to remove the seats. And then once the seats are out and the windows are rolled down, then we're going to kill power again. So we're going to go ahead and do that this time. All right, we're trying to remove the seats right now, and he moved it forward, and he's got a number 8
Yes.
Allen socket. And once he takes those both out, he'll just push the seat back and then do the same thing on the front. And then once the seat's loose, there'll be a connector on the bottom. So we're proceeding to do that right now. Same thing on the passenger side. There is some covers though in the front that they'll have to remove, possibly. They slide over the track on the front, and there's like a center piece, plastic piece. You just pull that up and then slide the piece forward. So that's all on the front. Matter of fact, they are over here, as you can see. And like I said before, this is the little piece that you just get like something underneath there, pull this up here, and then slide it forward, so that releases it. So there should be 2 of those on each seat on the forward portion of the track. All right, so we've got this passenger seat loose here. Forgot to mention that this belt has to come out too. There's a fastener in here. You can kind of like move the up and down a little bit, and it may, like, you can kind of see here, it kind of lines the hole up right here, so you can get your socket through there. And then, like I said, once you get that done, do this first, and then once this is done, then you take your connector off, tilt it back, and then take your connector off. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Okay, we've removed the seats. Here's your connectors for the seats. We've disconnected those. You just got to pull this up, use like a screwdriver or whatever, and they'll pop off. And then remove the seats. And then the next thing here, we're going to take, he has speakers here, so he's got to remove this box. So that's got to be removed. And then before you disconnect power also, you've got to open this compartment here, because this is electronic, so you have to release the solenoid to open that to get access to the screws in there. So before you disconnect power, you're going to have to do that. See the speakers here. He's got the speaker cover They just popped off. I think they're just friction. So he just popped that off, and then, like I said, you take all these screws out, and then there should be some fasteners behind there to remove this box. So we're doing that right now. We'll go ahead and proceed on. Even longer than that. So we get the speakers out, and see the fastener there. There's 2 fasteners there. They are 5 Allens. So we're going to remove that, and hopefully this box comes out. See, there's one on the bottom and one on the top. So we're going to take this out right now. All right, so we had to take this wire harness out of the box. Be careful when you pull this through. This is very close tolerance. And then there was another connector on the front of this we disconnected that goes to each speaker. So take this off from inside before, and then you'll pull this through the hole. And then now we'll start taking these panels off. Well, we got to start taking this off. Like I said, you open this, you need power. So before you disconnect power, you want this open. So we're going to go ahead and open. So before I disconnect power, we're going to open this up. So I might as well do that right now. I turn the key on. Key's on. And then we'll open that up. There she is. And then once this is open, we'll have to empty the stuff that's in there, and then those screws on the bottom, take those out. This will come out, and then the sides. So we're going to go ahead and do that this time.
You want me to disconnect power from the front now?
So Mark is taking this compartment apart. Like you said, you got to take those fasteners out. And then once that's out, that compartment will come out of there, and there'll be some fasteners on the side. Got the compartment apart, and there's some side fasteners. They're kind of difficult to get to, but they're 10s. There's 2 of them on each side.
Right.
Yeah.
One under this bracket, you may not see it, but Jeff, you probably see it from over here.
So you can move this stuff around. Like I said, it's kind of hard. Let me see your light here. See there, like it's difficult to see, but you'll see it when you get in there, because there's 2 right there. You see, take those 2 out, and then 2 on the opposite side, and then this back piece will come off. So we're going to go ahead and do that.
I locked it in.
All right, we've got these 4 screws out. 2 went right there, 2 on this other side, and then you have this harness down here. As you can see, it's disconnected already. You probably want to disconnect these 2 screws on the passenger side first, because there's this arm that kind of gets in the way, and then you'll have other screws on this other side to support the box, because otherwise it's kind of a difficult process to do. So I would disconnect the 2 screws on the passenger side first, and then do the 2 on the driver. And then don't forget to do your wire here for your solenoid. So you got something, Mark?
Nope.
All right. So other than that, that's removed, and now you got to take these nets off, take the screws out around there, and then once those are out, this carpet should be removable. I don't believe we have to take the side panels off. If we do, we'll remove them. But this stays on, the bottom stays on. This kind of tucks behind there, I believe, and then we'll remove the back panel once we get the carpet off. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. All right, so I've got the 2 screws removed here. I think there were like, what's that? 3 Allen. And then this thing is tucked in at the bottom, so just kind of lean it forward and pull out at the same time. And you'll see how those little fingers kind of tuck in here. So the other side's the same way. Mark's working on it right now. And we're going to continue on. All right, so we've removed the other side just for convenience. Like I said, you could probably get in and out, but we just took it off because it does tuck, the carpet does tuck behind it a little bit. And then there is a couple little screws that hold this bracket on that cover. So you want to remove that. Like that. Yeah, just like this. So you want to take this off. There's 2 screws here. This just pulls friction fit. So this panel should just pull straight out. You may have to remove the seal a little bit. This seal just pulls out a little bit because it's kind of tucked behind it a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then, like I said, the carpet should be removed. All right, so we're starting to pull the carpet out, and we're going to kind of make a note of something here. This little wire that is for your solenoid, for your little storage compartment, it's kind of tucked up out of this corner right here.
Exactly right.
So be easy with it and just kind of, watch where it's at. So when you go back together with it, you know where it's at. And like I said, this is for your little subwoofer. But this looks like we may not have to mess with that. We're just gonna kind of leave it there. But yeah, this carpet just kind of work its way out a little bit. It's kind of tucked behind the bottom there. And you might have to work it around these little brackets here for your storage compartment also. But there
it is.
There it is. All right, so we're gonna get access to this panel. I believe these are 10s.
Those are 10s.
The other one on the, I told you.
Yeah, these here are 8s that were on that little bin that comes out. They
Yes,
were 8 millimeter.
These were 8s, by the way. We said they were 10s, but they're 8s. But these are 10s. So we're going to go ahead and remove that panel, and then we should have access to the front of the motor at this point. We've got our panel removed, and we have access to some of the belts. The next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to drain the coolant here. You could drain, if you're doing a system flush, you could drain it to the front. Also, you have to take the front panel off to get access to the radiators. But I think this car's had a fluid change recently, so we're not going to go to that extent. But this line does have to come out. We'll probably break it down below, drain the fluid out, and then we'll have to take these covers off here. They have some Allens. Pay attention to the length of the bolts. The bolts do vary in length. And then once we get this stuff out of the way, then we'll be able to get our timing belt cover removed. So we're just going to work on that, and then we're going to raise the car up also to get access from the bottom. You kind of got to work both areas at the same time. And then on these, don't forget, you're going to have to probably check, and here's, you got your tensioner on your, I think that's your power steering there. We'll have to break the center nut loose here first. This will have to be broke first before you rotate that, or you'll snap that bolt. So I think the alternator is the same way. So you have to pay attention to that. We'll get to that. When we get to that point, I'll show you. So we're going to go ahead and break some of these loose up here and proceed on.
Do you like?
Yeah. Okay, so we've taken the cover, the 2 bolts on this cover above out. And so you got to take these 2 here, and then there's 2 more kind of hidden up further. They're kind of a pain to get to. So once you get those out, that cover should be able to remove. You may have a little bit of interference with this coolant line right here, but both these coolant lines have to come loose anyway, because we've got to drain the coolant. And then I believe this one here is the one that we've got to take out completely. So yes, yeah. Let's see. Yes, that's the one. I'm sorry. That is the one that's got to come out completely. So we're going to take those 2 bolts on that cover out, and then take the 2 above it, and that cover will split in half. And then we're going to take this coolant line off, and then there's a block that sits here. This piece right here, this has to come out. There's a couple screws. There's one of the screws up in here we can't really see. That's got to come out.
Yeah, I see it right
And then the other screw over here on the side.
right here. Right? Do you see it?
Yeah, right there. It's got to come out. So we're going to go ahead and do that at this point. Make a mess and everything, and proceed on. All right, we're taking these hoses off first because it's a little easier to take the hoses off than to fight getting access to these screws up here. As you can see, this one's here, but the other one's buried. It's underneath this hose. So we're going to take the hose off, and then we'll get access to the screw for this cover. So
It has to come off anyway.
yeah. All right, so we've got the bottom half of this cover removed now. Just to take note, these are like the split here. This is like up further. These are shorter, as you can see. And then the rest, here's the other ones. The 2 of these are from the top when we took it from the interior. And then the other 2 are from this bottom piece. So those are a little longer. So just take note of that. These are longer. These are shorter. So we're working on getting the this box off here. We've taken the lines, the coolant lines loose, drained the fluid, and then, like I said, we're going to work on getting this box out of here. And there's a clamp here that holds this tube here.
That tube holds on to this guy.
So you want to take that loose, and then that's like 2 pieces. So take the bolt first. You might have to hold the back part with a wrench, and then you can take the rest of that rod loose. So we're going to go do that right now. So we've got this box removed because if you don't remove this, you can't put your socket on the crank bolt. So anyway, this one here went on the passenger side. It's a little longer. And then this is the two-piece unit here. This is going on the driver's side. This bolt here is a little shorter. And then this one here. So this kind of sits like this. The bolt here on the top here holds a clamp on for the coolant line. So anyway, we took that off, and we're continuing to take some other things off down below. And we'll catch you in a few. All right, so we're going to break these idlers loose. This one's for the alternator on this side, and then we've got one for your AC compressor. As you can see right there, we have to break these center bolts loose first, okay, before you can move this bolt. I mean, you can move this bolt, but it's going to bind, so you need to loosen these up first. So that's a 12
millimeter. I believe that's probably a 12 maybe.
And then this one's a 12 up here. And like I said, loosen the center first, and then you can move the actual tensioner bolt on both of them.
Maybe 18 or 19.
So we're going to go ahead and do that. Take those belts off at this point, and we'll catch you in a few minutes. All right, so we've got the alternator belt removed and the AC compressor belt removed. Like you said,
that's a 10 millimeter there, that bolt. And this one's a 19.
And this is a 19.
Or 3/4.
At this point, we're going to let the car back down and then work on some items from above and then continue on. All right, so we're back on top now, and we're going to take these two bolts out, which are 10s, and then these are 5 Allens. We're going to take those out. There's 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, also on that side. We're going to take out, and I believe you got to take this off too to get this cover off around there. Take those off, and then we should be able to get access to the belts. And now, take in mind that these are different lengths, so watch where you remove these from, because like I said, they only go in certain positions possibly.
The bolts.
The bolts, yeah, these bolts here. So we're going to go ahead and do that at this time. All right, so we've got both cam covers removed. You have to remove this pulley here. It's this idler pulley, because it kind of like keeps the, it's in the way of the cover, so you have to remove that. So other than that, you kind of got to wiggle this line around. It kind of gets in the way, and also this coolant tube. So we've got that out. We can loosen this belt now. Like I said, you have to loosen this first on this bolt, and then the tensioner, and that'll disconnect your power steering pump. So other than that, we're going to do that right now, and then we're going to have to do remove the plugs and everything probably also, because we're going to line this up as much as possible. And to do that, easier way to do is remove the plugs and the coils and all that, so we can turn it by hand. But that's down the road a little bit. But we're going to take this other belt loose and proceed on. All right, so on your power steering pump, like I see, you got to loosen this one here, and there's one back there I'm pointing to. You got to loosen that one too before that thing will pivot, before you can turn this adjustment screw. So, like I said, there's a screw up here, that one, and this one needs to be loosened, and then you can do your adjustment screw, just by the way. But all the belts are off except for the timing belts. So we're in the process of taking the coils out and the plugs right now. And then once those are out, then we'll move the engine, the top dead center on number 1 cylinder, which number 1 cylinder is on the passenger side, most front. We're going to get it close to that, and then we'll do our timing belts. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. All right, so we're on the back, or on the top side again. We're pulling the plugs and coils out, and also we're going to pull the end cap of the cam covers here, so we can see the timing marks. So we're gonna, there's one on each side. Yeah, give them some light there, and they were kind of leaking anyway, so we were going to change them also. So those caps on the end here,
these guys,
we're going to pull out on both sides.
There you go.
And then, like I said, we pulled the coils and plugs out, which are right here. the plugs, and then the coils are over there on the bench. So that's where we're at on this right now. All right, so we've removed the hardware to this cover on the passenger side, and up there on the upper left there is a bracket that attaches to it. I don't know how easy you can see that.
Here, look at it from this side if you want.
And then there's another one over here. You can see it's holding a harness. Try to get my camera in there. It's kind of hard to see. But there's a bracket on both of those, so pay attention when you're putting them back together. All right, everyone. We had taken the plugs and coils out and everything, and we were lining everything up on top dead center. We were using these marks here, but these were, I don't know if they're not factory, I don't believe, because these are the white, they're white from the factory. Someone else did these, but you can't trust these because these gears move. Okay, you can move these gears. When you're doing timing, make sure it's on the number 1 piston, compression stroke, top dead center. This is close, but what you really want to rely on are the marks on the cams themselves. And they're hard to see. You really need a mirror and everything. But let me see that other light there. Yeah. So down in there, you'll see the end of the cams. And on the cams, there'll be a mark, and there'll be a mark on the case. And those lines is what you're going to rely on your timing, because these don't change. So
see if I get an idea.
Yeah.
See if I help him with the case marking.
You can see.
Jeff, you may have to take this from me.
Yeah.
Can you see it? Because I can't help you.
Let me see if I can put the camera down in there. But it's kind of like I said, it's a tight area. You can see on the right cam there. Here, shine your light down there again, Mark, if you can.
Here, does that help? All right. Here you go. Probably the best we're going to do there.
There is a mark on the case inside there. You can see on the upper cam, there's a line that's kind of like at the 2 o'clock position on both of those. So they'll be on the upper and lower. That mark is on the case. And then on the cam, there'll be a mark that runs like towards you. It's hard to see because there's such a reflection. I'm not going to be able to get in there. But I'm just telling you that those marks should line up. So that black piece, that black round piece should have a mark on it. And that should be in a line with the case mark. Like I said, hopefully I'm not losing you. But that's on both sides, left and right bank. All those marks should be like, they don't have to be dead on, but they should be to that, like one side of that mark. I wouldn't say out of that mark, but it could be on the edge, could be in the dead center, but it has to be in that range. So if it's out of the edge of that case mark, I would start looking at your timing because it should be somewhat close. Now this could change, especially the 2 cams are on variators, which could move that cam slightly. So technically you're supposed to pressurize that. There's a system where you can pressurize that variator and get those cams to center. But I mean, it's not that critical. So anyway, just kind of giving you a heads up.
Okay.
All right, so we've got our tool that locks the flywheel in place. Okay, this is made by, this is actually a Hill Engineering part. So I can tell you what the part is later on, but that's a Hill Engineering part. This locks the crank bolt so you can break it loose. So once the bolt's loose, we can take that bracket out of there, or the tool out. So we're gonna break the crank bolt now. That's 36 millimeter, and it's gonna have quite a bit of torque on it. So we're gonna take that off right now. All right, we've taken the crank pulley off right now. We've got our spacer in there. We've got our bolt back in for the crank pulley. We've lined up our timing marks again on both sides. You can see they're lined up. We don't forget to remove your bracket, the tool to lock the flywheel clutch assembly. So that's got to be removed because you're only using that to remove the crank bolt and install it later on. So at this time we're going to use our Ferrari lock tool, which is basically vice grips on both the cam assemblies, and then we're going to break the bolts here on our adjustment on our idler pulleys. So that's what we're going to do next. We got to get an Allen wrench too. I don't know what size it is, but we're going to line the hole up here. You can line this hole up here and lock this in because that's part of your adjustment, but you want to do that before you break that nut loose, because if you don't lock this in, when you break this nut loose, this thing will shoot out, and that's a pain in the butt to get readjusted to back in there. So you don't want to forget to do that. So that's what we're going to do right now. We'll show you that. So hold on. All right, we've taken the crank pulley off right now. We've got our spacer in there. We've got our bolt back in for the crank pulley. We've lined up our timing marks again on both sides. You can see they're lined up. We don't forget to remove your bracket, the tool to lock the flywheel clutch assembly. So that's got to be removed because you're only using that to remove the crank bolt and install it later on. So at this time we're going to use our Ferrari lock tool, which is basically vice grips on both the cam assemblies, and then we're going to break the bolts here on our adjustment on our idler pulleys. So that's what we're going to do next. We got to get an Allen wrench too. I don't know what size it is, but we're going to line the hole up here. You can line this hole up here and lock this in because that's part of your adjustment, but you want to do that before you break that nut loose, because if you don't lock this in, when you break this nut loose, this thing will shoot out, and that's a pain in the butt to get readjusted to back in there. So you don't want to forget to do that. So that's what we're going to do right now. We'll show you that. So hold on. All right, so we've got our timing marks lined up, and I actually drew some more. You've got your marks here on your pulleys here. We did. You can't see them because they're underneath the vice grips. I added a couple right here on this case where they line up with a mark on the case on both sides, so we know if the crank is moved at all. When you lock these in, lock them towards the back, because you don't want to lock it in towards the front, because that can bend that. So if you lock it towards the back, it's more rigid. Same over there. Don't go crazy tight with these. I mean, they don't need to be crazy tight. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take this tool here, and we're going to hold this, and then we're going to take a 17 millimeter and break this nut loose. And then once the nut is loose, I'm going to keep holding this and not let it go, and then I'm going to install my pin and capture this hole. Because like I said, you don't want this actuator popping out, because it's a pain in the butt to get it recaptured. I mean, you can, but it's just more work you got to do. So if you're not changing these, which some people can change these, we're not changing it this time. We're just going to recapture this. So that's where we're at. Other than that, that's where we're going right now. So we're breaking this loose.
Okay, I say I'm going to break it loose. I'm going to do this first. If I get a little bit.
All right, so we've got the nut loose, and then after he gets the nut loose, he can adjust the eccentric there, which is going to move this piston in and out somewhat. Go the other way to put tension on it, probably.
That's what I was doing. More?
Yeah. Yep, you're close.
No? I feel like I'm going to go the wrong way now.
Yeah, go the other way.
No, I'm all off.
All right, try it again. It's in there. Here, just let it go. It's captured.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to let that nut loose now. We've got the actuator captured, And then we're going to take the idler pulley off now and take the belt off.
Whole thing.
Yeah, just try it again.
Huh?
All right. You got the belt in there. When you put the belt on, make sure you don't have any slack in this area. Make sure this is all nice and tight. Your slack wants to be in here. All right, so we installed the new idler pulley. We kind of just got it like not torqued up. It's just kind of tight, just enough to hold the belt into place. Because this is the point where you're going to loosen this back up, and then you're going to take your tool here and adjust this pulley, and we're going to adjust it until this pin slides in and out freely. Okay, then once it slides in and out freely, we're going to lock this in, and then we're going to take our tensions. We're going to strum this one, and it should equal to 190 to 220, somewhere in that area. And then you check your gap here, and it's supposed to be 1.9
to 2.3.
To 2.3 millimeters. So we're kind of looking for that. I mean, this could vary a little bit, but mainly you're wanting to move this in and out freely. So that's what we're shooting for right now. So anyway, we're going to do that. I'm going to put this down because it takes both our hands to do this. All right, so we've got our nut torqued up now. It was
37 foot-pounds.
37 foot-pounds. We used our app, Easy Tension, which I can't show you because I'm using it on the phone that I'm recording with. So like I said, you want to strum here and here, add the two together, and it should be 190 to 220 hertz. And we were coming at 207.
207.
So we're good. And you're supposed to take a measurement here. We're going to be good there too. Like I said, 1.9 to 2.3 millimeters. So we're good there. So now we're done with this belt. Like I said, don't forget to torque it. That's the big importance there of anything that you're doing. Make sure you torque that. Now we're going to go to this other side and do the same thing. The whole thing is going to be repeat. We really don't need to film that because it's going to be identical to the other side. All right, we'll show the final result. All right, so we just ran it through by hand, like 3 or 4 revolutions. Everything lines up. This is our timing marks here that we made. And then we made a couple down here with that casting piece. You can kind of see it. Same thing right there. That lines up. Kind of weird with the angle that we were using, but it's lined up. And then your other red line up there lines up. So all our marks line up. No binding. No slippage on any of the teeth. So we should be good on our belt now. So other than that, we'll start putting the accessory belts and everything back together, and we'll catch you in a few when we start doing that. All right, so yesterday we finished torquing up the idler pulleys on both sides. All that's done. We ran it through several times again. That all seemed like it worked out. Timing marks all lined up. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and start putting these covers back on. Now,
timing belt covers.
Yeah, timing belt covers, these two here. We're waiting on one of the belts, the AC compressor. It was incorrect, so we've got another one coming. We're going to put back as much as we can right here. And then we've got some other things we're going to be doing also. But that's what we're doing right now. All right, so we've got our covers on and torqued up. And then I just put the power steering belt on, which is around 100 hertz. And then we've torqued the crank bolt here. It's 144 foot-pounds. And don't forget you have to put your tool in the flywheel so you can hold the crank from spinning while you're torquing it up. Don't forget to remove that. So now we're going to move on. We've got a couple more belts here. We've got the alternator and the AC compressor belt, which I think we're going to hold off on that because we're waiting on the AC compressor belt, and it has to go on first before the alternator. So we're going to go ahead and do some other things on the bottom, and we'll catch up with you here in a few. All right, everyone. We're down below again, and we're kind of holding off on the timing belt stuff right now. We're waiting on a few parts. So this guy is wanting new headers also. So we're starting to take off these headers here. You can see there's a couple of studs here already had the nuts off. What size were those, Mark? Like a 13 millimeter. Had to take those off, and then we'll have to take these back to studs loose here on the expansion joint. Same on the other side. So that's what we're working on right now. We're going to be going with the top speed headers on this again, like we did on my car a while back. But anyway, that's what we're doing right now, and we're going to proceed on. All right, so we've started to take the header bolts off on the bottom, and to get access to the ones on the top, to make it easier, we're going to take the inner fender wells apart so we can get it from the side. Don't want to really lay on the top here. So we're going to take these side panels off here on both sides, and then take this off on both left and right. Then we can undo the EGT, or not EGT, oxygen sensor harnesses underneath there too. So we'll get access to that. And then on the inner fender on the right hand side, there's some screws that come up through the top. So we'll show you that when we get these panels off. So we're going to take these off right now. All right, so don't forget this is your oxygen sensor here for your pre-cap. So you have to disconnect those. It's screwed to the side here to the frame. Same on the other side. So right there, you have to disconnect those so you can take the oxygen sensor out. So we're going to go ahead and proceed on. You got to take the emission tube off next. Most likely it's down there. You can see it on the left. Here, shine the light on the side, Mark.
This way?
Yeah, right there.
Yep.
That emission tube's got to come off on both sides, so we're going to do that next. All right, so we're in the process of removing this inner fender well on this so we can get access to the top of the top bolts on the headers. So you have to, down here, there's a couple of fasteners, and then around the perimeter, there's a few you can see here. There's one in the back here, a couple in the back, and then the other panel we've already removed, the one below that. And then on this side, there's some fasteners on the top here, on this air tank. As you can see, there's a couple 10s in this area right here. Don't forget to remove those. So those have to come out, and then that inner fender on this side will come down. So, all right, so we've got that inner fender out. Like I said, this air tank kind of fits on there. So don't forget that, and it has to be removed from the top. Now we have access to our EGT probe right there, and the emission tube, and the other nuts. So gonna make it a lot easier for you to get access to these nuts on the headers. So we're gonna go ahead and proceed on and take those nuts and lines and everything off, and hopefully the next thing we'll have it out. All right, everyone, we've removed the one header. I actually removed both headers. We've got the new one on the driver's side with the top speed header. The right side we've had some issues with. So we're getting another one from top speed. So we're at that point right now. We're kind of in the wait for that. We're draining the engine oil right now. And then we actually went to the front and took off this front panel here for the front of the car so we can drain the rest of the coolant. Like the other day, we broke those lines loose, so we're going to change the coolant here. And we took the drain plugs out of the radiator here. There's one here, and there's one on the other side you can see right there. So we drain the fluid out of there, and then we'll service that later on. But that's what we're doing right now. Like I said, we're doing several different things, but currently we're draining the oil. We're going to drain the oil from the front plug here, and then we're going to drain it from this plug in the back. And then the customer wants to check the screen here. He had changed this last year. He had some materials in there from like gasket material that someone must have changed the valve cover at one time, and he wants to double check that to make sure it's clean. So we're going to pull this screen back out and look at everything, make sure it's all good, and throw it back in. But that's where we're at. All right, I didn't know we didn't show you the oil change, but I've got another oil change video, so if you guys want to watch it, you can look through. But we put our plugs back in, this one here, and then we took the screen out. We put the screen back in, torqued it all up.
And it looked clean. It was good.
So yeah, it was clean. So we're going to go ahead and put oil in this right now, give us something to do while we're waiting on some other things. So we're going to let it down. All right, so we're back on the ground, and like I said, we got to remove the filter, which is way up underneath there. It's kind of underneath up in here. Can't really see it from here. It's kind of buried, but we're going to remove that and then put our oil in it. So
Can you see it?
yeah, I can't really see it. It's like I said, it's buried.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to remove that and then continue on. All right, everyone, we're back here on top. Like the other day, we changed the oil and serviced it. So today we've got our extra parts, our new belts for our AC compressor and alternator. So we're going to install those. We've got the belts right here, and we're going to install those and then get the frequencies correct and then move on from there. So we're going to install those now. All right, so we've got these belts torqued up now and frequencies in. Like I said, you want to set this first and then tighten your center bolt here. And then this will actually increase the pressure on the belt. So if you check your frequency here, after you have this adjusted, and then once you adjust this, this is going to tighten it a little bit more. Same thing with the AC compressor. So if you adjust this and then tighten the center bolt, it's going to increase the tension on your belt. So this come out to about 140, and then this is around 100. So anyway, I'll put these frequencies in the description at the end, and we're going to move on, and then we're going to adjust these. There should be like just a little gap on these pulleys here, on this one and the one above here. You don't want this riding on the belt technically. You want it right next to the belt, but close enough to where if this thing starts slapping, it'll roll. It'll hit it then. It just keeps that belt from slapping. So we're going to check the dimension of that. Usually I put like a little ruler in there, like a 1/16 or so gap in there, and we're going to do that and check those. That's good, yeah. All right, so I've put my 2 metal rulers in here on this idler pulley here, and then I kind of made a gap here, as you can see. It's not riding on the belt, but it's just right off the belt. And then I torqued this bolt up here. You may have to hold that with a wrench. This one here didn't move, but sometimes they want to move. So you can see the gap right there. That's just enough. Like I said, this is not supposed to be riding on the belt all the time. It's just enough to keep this belt from slapping. So that looks good. And now we're going to go ahead and install this cover here. This one here on, and then the one on the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so we've got our covers on, our screws in, and like I said, the upper cover here where this bottom cover meets the upper cover, you can't see it. There's the 2 small screws. They go up there. I guess maybe this side here, you can see it. Yeah, right here. See it? The small screw up there, there's 2 of them. Those are shorter. And then these ones right here, they're the longer screws. And then install your clamps, your hose clamps on here. Make sure those are tight. And then you've got your other support clamp here, right there. Don't forget to do that. And your box. Make sure your box is there. All right. So all that stuff's torqued up, and we're going to move on. Hey everyone, we're going to move on to putting these caps on the valve cover right now. We're kind of waiting for some coolant, so we're going to do this. We put some Hylamar on there and spread it around. Make sure you get those seams pretty good, because if it's going to leak, it's going to be where the gaps are between the valve cover and the head. That's where it's going to leak. So make sure you get sealant in there. So we're going to do that. Make sure you clean your surfaces pretty good. So we've got this surface cleaned up really good. We're going to put some Hylamar on here also. And then we're going to install our gasket on right now. We've got some new gaskets. We're going to install those. Here, Mark, why don't you put that on?
So it's going to go this way.
So he's installing those right now. It's kind of hard to see it with two of us up in there. But yeah, make sure you put the sealant, RTV or Hylamar on both sides. Make sure the surfaces are clean. And you don't want to use anything rough on this. You know, you can use like we had a plastic scraper here that we used to clean this up, and a little Scotch Brite here. Those clean them up pretty good. But we're going to put some Hylamar on this side and then put them on, and then we're going to do the same on the other side. All right, so we've got our covers installed on both sides. Like I said, don't forget your bracket on the left-hand side. Same on, this is the left-hand side. Same on the right side. Both sides are identical. Don't forget your clamp on the inboard side there. You can see it. And we're going to go ahead and move on and find something else to do here. We're done with installing those caps right now. They're torqued up. And I think we're going to have to run and get some materials here. But other than that, we'll continue on. All right, everyone. We're going to have to remove this bumper to get these. We installed new headers. Well, we're still waiting on the one on the right here. There was a problem with it, so we had to send it back. And we're waiting on the new one. So in the meantime, we're going to have to remove this exhaust assembly the rest of the way. So we're going to remove this rear bumper. I'm not really going to show you, but we have other videos for bumper removal on a 360. So if you want to refer to that, it's the same. It's no different. But we're going to go ahead and remove this and then remove the exhaust system. So, and then I have a video on that too. So if you want to refer to that for future references. But that's what we're doing at this point. All right. Everyone, we've just removed a bumper and removed part of the exhaust. So we're finished with that at this time. Like I said, we're still waiting on the other header before we go back together with that. So in the meantime, we are now getting set up to suck down this coolant system, and we'll leak check it at that time also and let it sit for 10-15 minutes once we have the vacuum set on it. And then after we do that, we'll draw in the new coolant. Like I said, we've done this several times on other Ferraris. There's one we did on a 360 a while back, on my personal 360, and a 430. Same process every time. So really, don't really need to show this again, but we're going to, step by step. So we're going to get this set up and show you a little bit after that. All right, so what we're using for coolant is the Xerix G48 coolant in this. It's kind of a bluish color. We've got like 3 gallons in this bucket. And we've got this set up now. We've got a vacuum on this. And
we're going to pull a little more.
We're at like 23.5 right now, and it's stabilized. But we can pull a bit more. Pull as much as you can, because that, you know, the more vacuum you have, the more fluid it's going to draw in. So if you don't have enough vacuum on your system, it won't pull in enough fluid. So we're going to see how high to go here. It should be close, but we're going to take it a little bit higher. So we're going to sit here for a minute and see what happens. All right, so we're sitting about 25 inches of mercury there. I don't know if you can't really see that, but we're going to let it sit for a couple more minutes. It shouldn't move. If it starts moving, you've got a leak somewhere, either internally or externally. You should be able to hear it, hopefully, externally. A lot of times, if you don't have a good seat right here, will be one of the culprits. But this is pretty solid. And just make sure your valves are closed also. You could have a leak there. But we're going to let this sit for a couple more minutes. And then we're going to take the other end here. And we've got a bucket, a clean bucket of coolant. And when you're drawing this in, make sure this stays submerged or you'll get air in the system. And you don't want that to happen because that'll mess up your draw into the system. So you want to make sure that this stays submerged. If you run low on fluid, shut your valve here, shut your valve, and get more fluid. All right? So we're going to let it sit, and then we're going to start drawing this in.
We'll put it on here.
All right, we're drawing our fluid in. You can see it. And as the fluid draws in, the pressure will drop. And you can regulate that, the draw, how fast it goes in. But like I said, make sure your end of your tube keeps submerged. Right, so we're done putting coolant in there. It's a little high, but we'll probably have to add some to it once we get the car running. It's right at the neck here, which that's high. It should be about half the tank. Normally is where you want to run it. But like I said, we can't start this car yet. We've got to add oil to it also until we get the header on. So we're just going to stick with this right now. So we're like at a standstill on this until we get some parts in. And we'll continue on once we get those parts. All right, so everyone, we've got the header on the right-hand side, passenger side installed now. And we went ahead and installed the rest of the exhaust on. And we've got that all secure and torqued on both sides. And we serviced the oil the other day. And I guess we're ready to start it. But make sure that you've put all your oxygen sensors back in and your EGT sensor in the back. Make sure they're installed also. So like I said, we're going to go ahead and we've got oil in it, and we're going to go ahead and start it for the first time since we've changed the timing belts. All right, everyone, we ran the car a little bit a while ago, and no leaks or anything, so we're starting to put the interior back together. So we're going to go ahead and do that, put the back panel on, put the carpet in, put the speaker housing and the back storage compartment back on here. And then we'll put the seats and everything back in. And after that, we're going to start it again and check our fluid levels. All right. All right. So we've installed the under trays now. We reinstalled the inner fender wells and torqued up the wheel bolts to 80 foot-pounds. Really, at this point, we are done with the service on this car. We have a few things to tidy up, but like I said, we're going to recheck the oil, coolant. But other than that, we are complete on this service on this Ferrari 360. If there's anything you want to refer to as far as like the under tray, remove and install, the headers and exhaust and the rear bumper, I have videos of that on my previous 360. So if anybody wants to refer to those videos, you can go through and look for those. And they're broken down more specifically in my other videos. But like I said, we have all the hardware back in. Don't forget to tighten all the hardware up. Some of these hidden places like here, these little cavities, they can be forgotten. So don't forget to torque all these up. And other than that, this concludes the service on this Ferrari 360. So other than that, please stay tuned. And we have some other things coming up. We're going to do a coolant flush here in a few weeks, probably on my Gallardo here. And we've got maybe a Ferrari 360 Challenge car coming in maybe a few weeks. We're going to do some work for them. It's actually a race car. So stay tuned for that. But other than that, we'll catch you next time.